And hello, welcome to Our Ventura TV. I'm MB Hanrahan, and today my guest is Veronica Valadez. She is a Chicana activist and scholar, and also was involved in a recent demonstration, protest, to take down the Father Serra sculpture that has been for decades in front of Ventura's City Hall. Ventura, may I say, we acknowledge the original people of this land, which were the Chumash. Okay, Veronica, please, why don't you share with us your experience or some sort of historical context, if you like, of your feelings of why the sculpture needed to come down and needed to come down now.
My opinion on that is that this sculpture should have never been up in the first place, right? Because we're not honoring the original people of this land, which is the Chumash people. And I know that there have been attempts in the past to try to take down the statue or ask for the statue to be taken down, and it hasn't ever come to fruition. There have been talks, there have been attempts, there have been et cetera, and we're always told to wait. And then people forget and it stays up for another number of years. And so now here we are in this time in history in which people can really see the levels of injustices and the levels of racist, systematic racism within our country. And it isn't, systematic racism is different in the sense that when we experience racism from one individual to another, we know what that is. We see it, we feel it, we have to walk with that every single day. And it's a lot more obvious. Systemic racism isn't as obvious. Systemic racism has us believing that we're not being discriminated against or we're not being dehumanized within the system, when in actuality we are every single day. And so this statue, this monument, is a reminder of that. It's a reminder, and it isn't so much, I think a lot of people are pushing back by saying that we're trying to erase history. We're absolutely not trying to erase history.
Right.
What we are doing is trying to make sure that the history being told about Father Serra is inclusive of all perspectives, including the indigenous perspective, including the Chumash perspective, and that needs to be front and center. And I also feel that when some folks respond to the fact that, well, you can't judge Father Serra by today's standards, because back then the standards were different. I don't know that if we were to go back in time and we were to ask any Chumash individual if those standards were their standards and they were okay with it at that time, I highly doubt they're going to say, yes, this is okay during this time. I highly doubt that. So again, that tells me that people are so used to clinging on to the systemic racism of being able to justify, well, at that time it was okay and now it isn't. According to who? According to which system? And who did that benefit, and who does it continue to benefit to date? And so that's where we're at. So we are getting pushback, and I feel like a whole other level of that is that as people of color, as indigenous people, and I'm not Chumash, I'm Mexica, I'm very much tied to my Mesoamerican indigenous roots, but I also know the history of our people having had originated here in the Southwest of the United States. And so we're all related. And so this is traumatic to those of us that identify as being indigenous, because we share that collective trauma. We share that collective history of having Spaniards or all these different types of Europeans come onto our motherland and decide for us what is right and what is wrong, what is valuable and what isn't valuable, and to erase our culture, our history, our ways of knowing, our ways of being, and imposing something else on us. And that is very traumatic. And so when we have to look at these statues, these daily reminders of that, it's the trauma can never heal. It cannot heal. And so now we're at this point in time where we have the large and very strong mobilization of people because of the Black Lives Matters movement. And so we owe a lot to that movement as well. But I think people are also understanding that this is a Black and brown and indigenous struggle, because we have been facing the systematic racism as all these different peoples come together and are realizing like we're all dealing with the same thing. And the whole notion of divide and conquer has worked for so long from the very beginning. And if we allow for that divisiveness to come into our communities and creep into our hearts and into our spirits, then how are we ever going to see the day where we are truly, truly liberated and decolonized? When will we ever come to that? We're so mentally and spiritually colonized that there's division even within ourselves.
Right.
Even internally as individuals, there's division. And so we have to fight that every single day. And this is just one tiny thing that needs to happen, is to take down that statue, and it needs to come down immediately. I'm very conflicted in the way that this is rolling out. I think that we do want to see a peaceful resolution. And I think, to be very honest with you, deep down inside, a lot of us just want to tear it down. We just want to tear it down. Because it's part of the healing process to be able to reclaim that and say, enough, ya basta, no more. But here we are waiting once again for the authorities to be able to decide for us when we will be liberated and in which way we will be liberated. And so I'm very conflicted by that. I'm trying my very best to respect the process, because the city has vowed to take it down. They understand that it needs to come down. I would like to see it come down as soon as possible. We don't even have a date from them yet. And that just allows for the resurfacing of trauma to come back, because we're being told to wait. While we're waiting, we're being faced with a lot of these racists that come out and try to push back and try to organize against us and try to tell us that we're being racist and try to tell us that we have no right to reclaim our liberation, to reclaim our decolonized selves. And so there's a lot of division, and there's a lot of turmoil in our community right now because of that. I don't think that there'd be any way around that, but I feel that the longer we prolong it, the more it escalates and grows, and it just ferments, and it's painful. It's painful, and we're waiting to heal, and it doesn't feel good to be told to wait for that process. But here we are. We are on traditional Chumash territory. I know that at the beginning of this, when we saw all the other statues being torn down across the nation, it was only a matter of time before it hit Ventura. And so there were a number of younger activists. You know, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's good to be in a place right now where I see the younger generation step up and want to fight for something, and that feels really good. So I'm trying my best to play the role of a mentor and to support them in this. And when I first heard of the younger folks organizing, wanting to write a petition and wanting to hold a peaceful protest, I was in support of that, and I still am. And so I would like to continue to support that and be part of that in any way that I can. And so when I first caught wind of that happening, I immediately understood the importance of bringing the Chumash voice front and center. And so I reached out to my good friend, Radel Bañuelos, who is the vice chair of the Ventureño Chumash Tribal Council. And I wanted to let him know that these things were manifesting, and that it would be great to have them be involved, and so that there's solidarity and that we're all moving forward together, because that's how we're gonna heal. And so that's what we've been trying to do, and I've been trying to guide the youth and making sure that they stay in contact with the Chumash community for that, because we have to do that. And so that's where we're at right now.
Veronica, I cannot thank you more for providing this perspective and a context. And as myself, I will continue to listen and do what I can do. And I just want to thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for joining us on Our Ventura TV, and we will see you again soon.